John Boy.
Lessons from the screen, what we mean is we go through different documentaries to tell you what they gon' do. Give you our lessons, give them our blessings. If they trash, we tell you there is no second guessing. Knowledge is power, but time is precious, and we're here to keep you running with lessons. So sit back as we groove, giving you the review, so you only spend time on the docs that you need to.
What up, good people? Welcome to Lessons from the Screen, the show where we give you a review of whether or not a show, a documentary, a document, current event news, anything that you can get through a screen of any particular type is worth watching. We waste our time, our energy, and our brain power so that you don't have to. You're welcome. Lessons from the Screen is brought to you by PAX Inc. through the Freedom Train Network. You can find us on www.freedomtrainradio.com or on iTunes or Google Play Music. Be sure to head to both places and give us a review. And also be sure to head to paxinc.org. That's www.pactsinc.org to show some love and check out what our sponsors are doing. PAX Inc. is a black activist organization focused on developing the black community through a shift in culture, education, and economics. And as always, Lessons from the Screen has a frame of reference that aligns with the perspective of the black community. So everything that we look at will be looked at with a racial component involved and with some lessons that can be used to improve our community. This week, we will be talking about a current event for the first time on the show. We'll be digging into the Catalan people and the referendum they recently had as they voted for independence from Spain. This move shook the Spanish nation and has the entire globe watching and talking. But there are a lot of important lessons here for the black community, for black people. And in this show, we're going to dig into that lesson. We're going to give you a little bit of the history, a little bit of the current events, and then we're going to dig into, as we always do, the lessons that we can pull from these current events. So get excited. This week, we will be discussing the Catalonia sovereignty issue. So the Catalonia issue goes back a few centuries, and before we can actually discuss the issue, we got to give you guys a brief history lesson. And I don't want anybody to be under the assumption that this is a complete history lesson. It is a brief overview that is meant to give a limited perspective so that you can understand some of the things that we say when we say them. So we'll get into it. Before modern day Spain was modern day Spain, it was a collection of autonomous regions, with Catalonia being one of those regions. The War of Spanish Succession united those regions into what we know as modern day Spain in the early 1700s. The Catalan region maintained its culture, customs, and language through this entire time, even with the Spanish government trying to impose its own culture, customs, laws, and language on the region. The Spanish government finally gave up in 1931. It was a 200-year effort. Just want to highlight that. An effort they failed at. And this resulted in the restoration of the Catalan government. In 1938, General Franco tried to subjugate the Catalan culture and language again during the Spanish Civil War. And while he did win the war and conquer the region, Catalan culture continued to thrive in Catalonia. And in 1977, 2 years after the death of General Franco, and with the return of democracy to Spain, the Catalan region was granted autonomy again. Independence voices have kind of always been rumbling, and they began to grow in the region. And in 2010, the Constitutional Court in Madrid overruled an autonomy statute saying that there was no legal basis for Catalonia to be recognized as a nation within a nation. The economic crisis that Spain has been dealing with has grown rifts between the Catalonia region and the Spanish government, and many in Catalonia believe that they are propping up the rest of the nation. This region makes up 20% of Spain's GDP, but the region does owe the Spanish government $52 billion. So the numbers, Catalonia has a population of about 7.5 million, and 95% of its population speaks and understands its own language, which is pretty impressive for a nation within a nation. Typically, when we see situations like that, at least from my research, or my experience anyways, the custom language, the native language, tends to, as generation passes, fall out. Although Catalonia has been autonomous for a large amount of time, so I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. As of October 1st, 2017, 2.5 million people voiced their desire to be an independent nation during the referendum. The referendum was declared illegal. The police were sent in to break up the vote. Violence ensued. The region would not back down, so the government dissolved the regional government. They basically took away their autonomy and took direct control of the region. They imprisoned the elected leaders and are forcing a new election. And the former president, along with some of his cabinet members, are now refugees seeking safety guarantees or asylum before they will return from, I believe it's Belgium. So here we have the sovereignty issue, modern day example of it, laid bare for all of us. And the reason why I think this is important, and this is really one of the single most important lessons that we can pull out of this, and the reason why I think this is important is because there are a lot of voices currently within the community screaming about sovereignty. Literally screaming about it, and the number seems to be growing, and the amount of people that are buying into it, or that are agreeing with it, I shouldn't say buying into it because they're not being fooled, but that are agreeing with it, continues to grow. And it doesn't seem like anybody is really looking at the sovereignty issue for what it is. And here, with regards to Catalonia in Spain, we have a perfect example of the sovereignty issue laid bare in a location and in a region and with a group of people that are in a better position to achieve sovereignty than we are in America. So I think it's especially powerful. And the issue of sovereignty basically for me has two big issues. So sovereignty is, and before we get into all of that, sovereignty is basically supreme power and authority to govern yourself, to basically do whatever you want to do as a group of people, to have nobody else that you have to ask for permission before you decide to make moves within your group. Now, the key issue with sovereignty, the number one issue with sovereignty, out of the two big issues, this is the single most important issue, and it is the first of the big issues, is that sovereignty must be recognized. It must be recognized. Sovereignty is not something that you can arbitrarily claim. Your sovereignty has to be recognized by other people in order for it to be valid. So in a sense, even though it is essentially something you can claim, you can say, I am sovereign. Before it has any real power, that claim has to be recognized. So in another sense, in a more powerful sense, sovereignty is something that has to be granted by the rest of the people. It is something that has to be recognized and